Welcome to LPACTV. I'm inviting you to join us with a special follow-up interview, following up from our last interview on one of history's most notorious narcissists, Barack Obama. With us here is Sam Vaknin, author of the book Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. How are you, Sam?
Thank you for having me. Great to be on your show again.
Some of you may remember our previous discussion. It's available on the website for those of you who are joining us for the first time. Then let me introduce Sam, who in 2008 wrote an article published on the internet asking the question, is Barack Obama a narcissist or merely narcissistic? Since he wrote that article in 2008, since reviewing Barack Obama's deterioration or progress as a narcissist, however you choose to look at it, he's revised his question and said Barack Obama most certainly is a narcissist. Is this correct?
Yes, it is correct. By now, I have no doubt that he qualifies as a full-fledged person with narcissistic personality disorder, the extreme malignant form.
What we're going to do here is clue people in to get a better sense of what is happening to them so that they might act to save themselves and to save the nation. We're living through Obama's downfall right now. We're being dragged into his nightmare. Sam, you wrote recently a paper which I found on your website, Global Politician. Mm-hmm. The title is Narcissists' Reactions to Deficient, Fake, Negative, Low-Grade, or Static Narcissistic Supply. A lot of people have caught on by now that the president is a narcissist, and if you search the internet, you can hear all different flavors of this. What's missing from many of these accounts is that narcissism is a pathological disease, and the president is an acute case. And right now, for people to really understand what it means to say the president is a narcissist, they have to look at some of the features of narcissism. And this is what I think you were referring to in your paper.
Yes, I think, as you've said, that by now, I said it in 2008, LaRousse said it in 2009, and in a sense we were pioneers. But I think by now, everyone who knows how to type has joined the bandwagon. And so everyone says, Barack Obama is a narcissist. It was so obvious. I realized it long before he became president, and so on and so forth. Jumping on the bandwagon. All kinds of pundits and experts and self-proclaimed experts and so on and so forth. It wasn't that easy to see in 2008-9. Wasn't. May I remind you that everyone was in love with him? The mainstream media, from the mainstream media to Congress itself, from typical average households, the average Joe, to intellectuals. He was the new Messiah. And it was very difficult to discern behind this facade what was really going on. But then this is very typical of narcissists. Narcissists are great actors. They have thespian skills. They manipulate and fool people. And they fool most people most of the time, as opposed to the famous proverb. And this is the root of their success. Luckily, as reality intervenes, as reality interferes with the narcissist stratagems and with the narcissist stage or play acting, there's something crops up which is called grandiosity gap. The narcissist has a self-image. Narcissist has a false ego. He believes himself, narcissist believes himself to be omnipotent, omniscient, brilliant, and so on and so forth. And when reality sort of proves otherwise, an abyss opens between the narcissist's self-perception, which is highly unrealistic, highly fantastic, and drab, dreary, pedestrian, repetitive, predictable reality. And it is this grandiosity gap which is the undoing of the narcissist. However, even here, there are very few experts in the world on narcissism. Narcissism is the oldest topic in psychology and the least researched one. Freud mentioned it the first time in 1915. Kohut studied it in 1971. That's 40 years ago. And we still know close to nothing about it. And so people have this crass generalization. There's also the colloquial term, he's a narcissist. They want to say, they apply the term narcissist to someone who is merely selfish. was merely a jerk, excuse my French. But not all jerks and all selfish people are narcissists. Narcissism is, as you correctly said, is a disease. It's a pathology. It's the ruination of one's soul and one's self via processes of long-term abuse and trauma, being abandoned, for instance, in the case of Obama, being neglected by his own mother, by his father, being shunted and shuttled among households on 3 continents, being exposed to a largely white environment when he was black. And so these are serious, deep-set traumas. And the child must have felt abused and neglected and overlooked and so on. And so people like that, people who go through these childhood traumas, develop defenses. Now, defenses are like walls. They keep everything and everyone inside, but they never let you out. They are rigid. They cramp your style and they cramp your personality, and it grows stunted. It grows ill and malformed. This is what happened to Obama and what happens to each and every narcissist. Now, as I said, as a narcissist tries to propagate his false self, as a narcissist tries to impose his vision of himself upon other people, reality steps in. And reality puts a stop sign and says to the narcissist, hey, up to here. You know, you're not as grand as you think you are. You're not as brilliant as you think you are. You're not all-powerful. Obama is now at loggerheads with Congress, so his omnipotence is in doubt. You're not omniscient. Obama has tried several stimulus packages and has failed in reviving the economy. So he's both not all-powerful and not all-knowing. He's not omniscient and not omnipotent. So reality stepped in and reminded Barack Obama that the personality is trying to project, the story, the piece of fiction, the narrative, the confabulation that he is trying to convince all of us is true, is actually just that, a screenplay. There's no one there inside the narcissist. The narcissist is a shell, a piece of scripted fiction. After this happens, when reality has stepped in and the grandiosity gap has yawningly opened an abyss between the narcissist and the way he views himself, the narcissist reacts. And it is this reaction that I think would be useful for us to concentrate on in this interview. And I suggest to our listeners to listen to the first interview for a general overview of what it means to be a narcissist and the lack of empathy, exploitativeness, pathological lying, and so on and so forth. You have all that in the first interview. What you don't have in the first interview, and which we can elaborate upon in the second interview, is what happens to the narcissist when the house of cards tumbles down, when he is exposed as what he is, a feeble, not so brilliant, far from omniscient and far from omnipotent person. How does a narcissist react to such revelations, to the collapse of this carefully and precariously constructed false self? And even here, there's a whole gamut and range of reactions. And there is a whole gradation. There's a gradation in the extent that the narcissist feels vulnerable to reality, and so on and so forth. So in other words, it's a highly complex subject. And Obama reacts in very typical ways to extremely atypical situations. Not every narcissist is the president of the United States. Not every president of the United States has to cope with an economic crisis and a geopolitical one. So he's faced with extreme, atypical, unusual, non-characteristic circumstances, but because of the rigidity and sickness of his personality, he doesn't have the flexibility and the wherewithal to react as healthy, normal people do, by adapting themselves. Obama cannot adapt himself because he is set in stone. His personality is so sick, it can no longer react. And this discrepancy between a president who is ossified and fossilized and a fast-changing situation globally and in America, this is the crux of the apocalypse. This is where the calamity or the calamities have accumulated and will accumulate and will bring us all to the brink of something which is too frightening to contemplate.
Could we explore what the narcissist's view of reality is like to him? This is not easy for people because a narcissist doesn't think like regular people. For example, he doesn't have introspection. So how does the narcissist view reality in crisis conditions such as today?
As the narcissist confronts the fact that his self-perception is divorced from reality, and that is a fact, there are several reactions in a cycle that can only be described as mourning or bereavement or grief. The narcissist grieves for the death or demise of his false self. Now, this grieving process, as you correctly pointed out, is not conscious. It's not that the narcissist sits down, although the narcissist may get depressed. And as far as I can see, Obama is right now in a state of clinical depression, in my view. Mm-hmm. But this depression is not interpreted by the narcissist as a process of mourning, as a process of giving up on delusions and illusions that he had harbored in the past. It's not that the narcissist says, okay, I have to grow out of it, I used to think of myself in a certain way, now reality proved me wrong, so I have to recast my thoughts, my self-perception. I have to get reacquainted with my real self. There's no such process in the narcissist's mind. And this happens in healthy people's minds, but not with the narcissist. The narcissist feels depressed. Now, to explain to himself why is it that he feels depressed? I mean, he's omnipotent, he's omniscient, he's brilliant, he's the epitome of everything that's good and perfect. Many narcissists, for instance, Obama, have messianic delusions that they are here on this earth to carry out some cosmic plan or to rectify society's wrongs or to recreate culture and civilization in their own image, or it's almost godlike fantasy. So how come a creature endowed with omnipotence, omniscience, a messianic destiny, how can such a creature feel sad and downtrodden? And so it's a conflict. The narcissist realizes that he's depressed, and he has to explain to himself why. So there is this cycle. First, the narcissist denies. He simply denies reality. His plans to revive the economy and create jobs are going to work. Why? Because it's his plans. He's omniscient, he's omnipotent. So if he decides, it's called magical thinking. If something is in his mind, it has an outside existence. So his plans to revive the economy and create jobs must work. That's a denial of reality. He is loved by everyone. That he's utterly convinced of that, and then he has the poll figures, the figures that show that his job approval rating, is among the lowest in history. That's a blow. So following the denial, and as denial cannot be sustained for long, the onslaught of contravening and conflicting data and information it's a deluge, it's an avalanche, and even the narcissist cannot deny it for long. So the next solution the next step is one of 5 solutions. The narcissist can choose one of 5 solutions. And I will tell you in a minute which of the 5 Obama has chosen. But first, let's have a very brief overview of these solutions. The first one is what I call the delusional narrative solution. And so the narcissist constructs a narrative, a story, in which he is the hero. He's perfect, brilliant, irresistible, destined for great things, and so on. So the grandiosity gap is eliminated by becoming delusional, simply. And even in extreme cases, psychotic. That is not the solution that Obama has chosen, just to make clear. He is not psychotic and he is not delusional. Then there is the antisocial solution. The antisocial solution is saying, I renounce reality. Reality conflicts with me. Reality disagrees with my self-image. reality is out to debunk my false self, it's not my fault, it's reality's fault. I renounce it. I am surrounded by pusillanimous idiots. They don't recognize my unbound talents, my innate superiority, my overarching brilliance, my benevolent nature, that I'm entitled, that I'm cosmically important, that I'm perfect, etc., etc. So these people who don't recognize my magnanimity and superiority, they don't deserve consideration. And so the narcissist is pushed to criminal acts by renouncing reality and everyone around him as not deserving of consideration. The narcissist becomes antisocial and ends up doing criminal things. This is very common among chief executive officers of large corporations. They start by by having some strategy or some master plan. It fails, mergers and acquisitions backfire, and then they say it's not my fault, it's the fault of those who surround me. They don't understand me, they sabotage me, they this and that, and so they don't deserve consideration. And then the next step from saying these people are not human, I don't recognize them as human, they are subhuman. The next step from this to crime it's a very short step. And so these people end up criminals. Now, that is not Obama's solution either. That may have been Nixon's solution. It's not Obama's solution. So he has not chosen this solution. Then you have the solutions that Obama has chosen. And mind you, before I proceed, the choice is not a conscious choice. It's not like Obama is sitting with a deck of tarot cards and says, okay, so which solution is best suited for me? The choice is utterly unconscious. It is dictated by one's upbringing, socialization process, early childhood traumas, abuse suffered, peer pressure, and so on and so forth. So all these determinants converge unconsciously. It's like a volcano. There's an eruption, you don't know why and where from, and this eruption is the solution selected by the narcissist. And here are the solutions that Obama has selected. The first one is the passive-aggressive solution. Obama is passive-aggressive. Brinkmanship, frustrating your enemies, so-called, your adversaries, your enemies. Sabotaging processes, legislative processes, other processes, being stubborn, being inordinately and unreasonably stubborn, and so on and so forth. All these are what we call passive-aggressive solutions, because outright aggression is not allowed in certain settings. Obama cannot go and shoot some Republicans, He can't do that. It's not done. So aggression cannot be expressed. As it cannot be expressed, it is transmuted and subsumed in what we call passive aggressiveness. That is, being aggressive by being passive, by going to the edge, by brinkmanship, by being stubborn, by frustrating, by sabotaging. And we saw this kind of behavior in the negotiation on the debt ceiling. When the Republicans and the Democrats were negotiating a variety of debt ceiling packages in Congress, you remember, about a month ago, Obama was behaving passive-aggressively. He sat back in his White House, and he kept saying, I will veto this, I don't agree to this, the Republicans are bad, they're sabotaging me, they're this, and this kind of behavior is passive-aggressiveness. Of course, it is detrimental to the well-being of a country. It's detrimental to any social unit. Similar behavior within companies, destroys families, destroys any social unit. But within a country, it is magnified and amplified by the levers of power. And it's one of the most seriously problematic and dangerous solutions that a narcissist can adopt. And Obama has adopted it. The second type of solution he has adopted is what is called the paranoid schizoid solution. When the narcissist's defense mechanisms, including his false self, fail because of reality, not because of anything else, reality contravenes, the narcissist develops paranoid narratives. These are confabulations which place the narcissist at the center of other people's allegedly malign intention. So the narcissist is the subject of conspiracies, the subject of irrational hatred, the subject of pursuit. He is frustrated and sabotaged by other people. In Obama's case, the Republicans. He is he believes himself to be the victim of larger organizations, trends, and so on. And he develops persecutory delusions. And he begins to perceive totally normal debating techniques as slights and insults personally directed and definitely intended. And he develops ideas of reference. He begins to believe that people are gossiping about him, mocking him, prying into his affairs, and sabotaging his plans. He's convinced that he's the center of bad attention, that the people conspire to humiliate him, punish him, and so on and so forth. So Obama has gradually adopted passive-aggressive techniques to cope with his grandiosity gap by frustrating and sabotaging processes in Congress and in legislation and so on. And on the other hand, he has developed by now a clear paranoid schizoid personality. It's a personality that on the one hand believes that it is the butt and center of malign conspiracies, and on the other hand keeps aloof and detached from society. And so these are the solutions that Obama has adopted, in addition to posing himself as a constant victim. Self-pity, Theodore Millen, who is the father and mother probably of the field of personality disorders together with Kernberg, Theodore Millen said that self-pity in the narcissist is compensatory. And I'm quoting Millen. He said self-pity reinforces the narcissist's self-esteem against overwhelming convictions of worthlessness. That's in Millen's book, Personality Disorders of Everyday Life. And so Obama is now casting himself as a victim. By becoming a victim, he puts himself on a pedestal, actually. He attains the high moral ground. The bad people are out to get him. The Republicans are out to frustrate his great intentions. He is out to save society. And these people around him, again, mainly the Republicans, but not only the Republicans, anyone who disagrees with him, anyone who criticizes him, anyone who won't go his way, So all these people are out there victimizing him and preventing him from accomplishing his messianic cosmic goal, which is the utter reformation and transformation of American society, the rendering of American society a different society, the revolution of civilization. He regards himself as the most important person ever to have stepped on America's political arena, on the public stage. He is going to reinvent America. It is so grandiose that it defies belief. So people just don't believe how far how godlike he regards himself. And therefore they completely misunderstand him. People say, people analyze him in terms of a normal politician. He's doing this because he's trying to outmaneuver the Republicans, or he's trying to achieve these and these policy goals. And this is nothing. They don't get him. The guy is not out to pass this piece of legislation or to find jobs for 2 million Americans. These are byproducts, marginal byproducts. The guy is out to eliminate and eradicate America as he had found it and put his stamp upon a completely new America, the America that he will leave behind. That is his legacy. But because this legacy is fantastic and grandiose and, frankly, insane, he keeps bumping against reality. While he floats in outer space, conversing with God about how to transform America from the inside and from the outside, people don't have what to eat. There are foreclosures. There's unemployment. There are irate voters in the Tea Party. There are nasty Republicans in Congress. There are Democrats who are completely disenchanted with him. His job approval ratings are falling. And he's out there in the stratosphere, contemplating the change not only of America, but probably of the entire globe, And this is the danger. So his solutions, passive aggressiveness to tackle the day-to-day problems, paranoid schizoid to tackle the greater issue of being surrounded by people who see through him, and masochistic or pretending to be a victim so as to reconcile what's happening to him with his self-image. These solutions, coupled with a messianic cosmic destiny and mission that he believes that he self-imputed, that he attributes to himself, put all these together, and this is a truly witch's brew. It's a truly explosive mix. And we can talk later about the processes, twin processes of decompensation and acting out, which is where Obama is heading.
Well, that's our golem. You've just created the golem that is Barack Obama.
Yes, true. Very true. Yes.
The
golem comes to mind, definitely. Only it's motivated from the inside. The creator of the golem is the golem. It's even more frightening.
You can't get a cup of coffee here without hearing people. People will be lamenting about this and that. You don't even have to say his name. All you say is, wouldn't it be nice to have a real president? And the response is always a nod. Sorrowful, solemn nod. Yes. Wouldn't that be nice? It's become a dream in the population. And that's not what frightens Obama, which is very bizarre. His enemy is Congress, which is blocking his omnipotence.
And omniscience, because they dare criticize him, they dare disagree with him. The reason people with whom you share a cup of coffee tell you that it would be nice to have a president is precisely because of what I said. He is absent. He left. Elvis left the theater. He's absent. He divorced reality officially. He gave in the divorce papers.
Well, Congress isn't, or the Republicans aren't really even opposing him.
Yeah, I mean, his interpretation of reality is, of course, skewed. That's another problem, by the way. Yes, it's a great point. What we call cognitive deficits. As the narcissist tries to cope with a countervailing and injurious reality, the narcissist loses touch with reality, and his cognitive mechanisms, his ability to analyze reality rationally and react rationally, is compromised, and we call it cognitive deficit. So he reads the situation wrongly, ever more so. That's why he keeps failing in almost all his policy initiatives. He keeps reading everything wrongly, ever more so. Listen, don't forget that this person was adulated, absolutely adulated and idolized only 3 years ago. When LaRouche said what he said in 2009, Obama was a godlike figure. And I mean it. There was a sculptor who cast Obama as Jesus. Mm-hmm. He was a godlike figure. The fall is enormous. Even for a completely healthy person, such a fall from grace would be destabilizing. Let alone for a narcissist whose own self-worth, whose very balance depends on constant input from the outside of adulation, admiration, what we call narcissistic supply. The narcissist disintegrates, and this leads us to the next issue of decompensation and acting out. So as we said, when the narcissist is confronted with deficient narcissistic supply or with negative narcissistic supply, in other words, when the narcissist fails to garner the attention, adulation, admiration that he thinks he deserves and that he needs in order to maintain his grandiose self-image, his false self. When all this fails, as I said, there are 5 solutions, and narcissists gravitate towards 1 or 2 or 3 of these solutions unconsciously. But what happens when narcissistic supply is not only negative, but it is what we call fake, low-grade, or static supply? In other words, the type of supply that actually injures the narcissist. We are not talking only criticism and disagreement, but we are talking about, for instance, being ignored, being frustrated. What happens then when the narcissist does get attention, does get narcissistic supply, but this supply undermines the narcissist? This supply crumbles the false self. This supply threatens the precariously balanced house of cards that we call the narcissistic personality. What happens then? In this case, the 5 aforementioned solutions are completely irrelevant and they don't work. They don't work because these 5 solutions are built on the foundations of incoming narcissistic supply. As long as the supply keeps coming, these solutions can be applied. But once, as I said, the supply stops or it becomes low grade or injurious, these solutions don't work anymore. And then we have an extremely frightening phenomenon. We call it in psychology decompensation. Even normal people, even healthy people, have psychological defense mechanisms. Life is tough. People are nasty. Situations sometimes are difficult. To cope with all this, cope with life, people deploy, even healthy people, deploy psychological defenses. They deny sometimes reality. They withdraw sometimes to fantasy and so on. These are temporary measures, and they usually evaporate as the healthy person, learns to cope with the new circumstances. With a narcissist, the psychological defense mechanisms are rigid, they're always in place, and it's not a temporary phase. It's a fixed situation. But what happens when these defenses, when these solutions don't function in the face of mounting stress, countervailing information, negative input? What happens then? What happens, in other words, when the narcissist's repertoire of solutions and defense mechanisms completely fails him, when he doesn't know and is rendered incapable of coping with reality? Then the narcissist falls to pieces, very, very small pieces. There's a famous painting by Dali, Galatea, of a woman's face disintegrating into molecules. And same happens to the narcissist. He falls apart. This process of disintegration is known as decompensation. Now, together with that, there is something which we call acting out. Acting out is when an inner conflict, usually frustration, translates into aggression. Acting out doesn't involve insight or reflection, and there's no gratification being delayed. The acting out is intended to attract attention and to disrupt other people's lives, to cause damage. Decompensation usually goes with acting out. Now, in the case of Obama, decompensation would mean deep depression, complete inability to function. He would be rendered dysfunctional or non-functional. Hiding in the White House, the schizoid type of decompensation. And because he would be acting out, extreme aggression. When I say extreme aggression, I don't mean that he will establish concentration camps like Hitler or will go shooting people in the street. But he will use all the levers of power, everything granted to him by the Constitution and precedent, to wreak havoc, to cause damage, to disrupt, and to punish the people, the environment, the nation, the world, Congress, whoever made him reach this stage. Whoever he would blame or he blames should and would be punished. So we will have on the one hand a completely dysfunctional president in the throes and in the grip of severe clinical depression, hiding in the White House, completely paranoid, and on the other hand, acting out severe aggression, severe, disruptive, and potentially dangerous and damaging aggression, directed at everyone on his blacklist. Everyone who ever frustrated him, everyone who ever sabotaged him, everyone who ever criticized him, disagreed with him, and so on and so forth. Now, if this is reminiscent of Nixon, it's for a good reason. This is how Nixon acted in 1972, 1973. But Nixon was not exactly a narcissist. He had narcissistic defenses, but he was not a narcissist. And therefore, the damage he caused was much more limited. He did sink into depression, he did isolate himself in the White House, he did attack his perceived enemies, and so on. But the damage was restricted, and Nixon was able to make a distinction between the state and himself. He was able to go after his personal enemies without completely sabotaging the state and ruining it in the process. This distinction is lost on Obama, because Obama is a narcissist, and narcissists believe, like the famous French king, they believe the state is me, the state is I am the state. The United States is there as the stage upon which Obama will enact his global mission, his messianic destiny. The United States is there for Obama, not Obama is there for the United States. It's there because Obama needs a theater. It's there because this is the tool and the instrument given to Obama to fulfill whatever role he has in history. And when this tool and instrument becomes, or should become, unwielding and unyielding, Obama will punish the instrument. Now, Nixon didn't have such delusions. Nixon clearly understood. Nixon didn't have this cognitive deficit. Nixon understood reality, understood that the United States is an entity bigger than himself to continue after him, regardless of what happens to him. He did develop paranoid delusions. He did believe that he had enemies, and he did, by the way. And he pursued these enemies in illegal ways. But this was a very restricted, limited type of activity. Not so with Obama. When Obama goes down in flames, he will make sure to drag with him the entire nation. When he disintegrates and decompensates, everyone will disintegrate and decompensate with him. He will make sure of that. And when he acts out in aggression, he will elicit counter-aggression. It is an extremely dangerous moment in American history. Extremely. The dynamic forces which render the narcissist paralyzed and fake, his vulnerabilities, weaknesses, fears, are starkly exposed when his defenses crumble and become dysfunctional. Narcissist's extreme dependence on his social milieu for the regulation of his sense of self-worth is painfully and pitifully evident as he is reduced to aggression or, on the other hand, begging and cajoling. So at such times, narcissists act self-destructively and antisocially. The mask of superior equanimity that Obama always wears, is imperturbable. His equanimity is famous. Is what the French call sang-froid. This mask is pierced in such times, and he will display impotent rage, self-loathing, self-pity, passive aggressiveness, crass attempts at manipulation of his everyone around him. His ostensible benevolence and caring, compassion, fake empathy, will evaporate. He will feel caged and threatened, and he will react as any animal does, by striking back at his perceived tormentors, at his nearest and dearest, at the nation who disappointed him, at the people who misunderstood that he is here to fulfill a mission, that, in other words, he is the second coming.
This is right around the corner. This is coming down the barrel right now, and we haven't seen the worst of it. Nope. But we're beginning to.
Yep.
I don't want to talk about 2012 because I think that comes from a delusion which is associated with the problem of the narcissist. What can be discussed right now is that Obama's defense mechanisms are indeed crumbling, and the people around him know this. They know that on any issue, Obama is hated and held in contempt on the issue of experience, on the issue of foreign policy, of war, of the economy. He's even falling apart visibly.
Yeah, true.
So the only thing left, the Obama campaign is calling this a strategy, but it's really what is inevitable if this problem is not dealt with, is the threat of race riots.
Race riots, or playing the race card, I don't know if it will culminate in riots or not, but playing the race card is, of course, a natural move by Obama. But I think it's not grandiose enough for him. I think he will strive or aim to play much higher stakes cards. The race card is limited. How many black people are in the United States? 50 million, 20 million. It's a limited card. he will try to play a much bigger card, higher stakes card. For instance, poor versus rich. It's a much bigger card. He will try to create antagonism in the United States between poor and rich, harping on income inequality, on tax breaks for the rich, on Republican smugness and snugness, and so on and so forth. Now, here's an example which could culminate in riots, definitely, social riots, and which would aggrandize him much more than if we had another replay of Watts in Los Angeles. Yes. So poor versus rich. But I think that if he goes down in flames, he's going to try to drag the entire world with him, not merely the United States. The United States is his theater, but the world is his audience. And if they don't understand how great he is, how superior, how benevolent, how important, if they don't get his message, again, I'm using judiciously the phrase, the second coming. He is here to wreak havoc upon the existing order, and out of the ashes and ruination to spring forth a new civilization, compassionate, social, or maybe socialist, whatever it is. I'm not even sure what is his vision, and I'm not sure he's sure what is his vision. But it has to be something big, has to be something revolutionary, has to be something which will be remembered in the next 2,000 years, like Jesus. Think Jesus. You want to understand this guy? Think Jesus. So, this guy is a second coming. Why should he confine himself to race riots in Los Angeles and New York? Why not global riots between poor and rich? Why not global ruination of the economic system? Why not play global? Why not go global, you know? Why not open in as many theaters as you can all over the world? Why confine yourself to Queens? This is what worries me. This is what frightens me enormously. Narcissists function and function and function, and they look completely normal, and everyone around them tries to analyze them in a rational way. He's doing this because this is his self-interest, and he's doing this because he has this stratagem, and he's doing this because he's trying to manipulate the Republicans, and I don't know what. And all this time, as the narcissist presents a coherent facade of self-interest and rationality, inside there is a seething cauldron of resentment, hatred, contempt, conviction of one's superiority and entitlement, and frustration, mounting frustration. And we have in psychology the famous link between frustration and aggression. And one of these days, the volcano is going to erupt. It's going to erupt internally in a process that we call decompensation. It's going to ruin Obama. And it's going to erupt externally in a process that we call acting out. And it may, just may, ruin the world. And when I say ruin the world, I don't mean Third World War. I don't think it's going to press the button. And I don't think it's going to attack Russia with nuclear weapons. I don't think it's going to be a second Hitler. And I'm not talking about genocide and concentration camps. But there are a million ways to skin a cat. And there are more than a million ways to destroy the global ecosystem. You don't need concentration camps for that. And the President of the United States is among 2 or 3 people in the world who has the power to do just that. There's no balance between our ability to constrain narcissists and their ability to pull the wool over our eyes, to cheat and deceive to the very last second. And this is what Obama is doing. That's what I've been crying out loud since 2008, and LaRouche since 2009, and Krauthammer since 2010, and so on. But even though, consider the following. Now it is widely accepted, I would say, widely accepted, left and right. Even there was an article in the New York Times, New York Times Magazine, long article, by Gerald Post, who was a dyed-in-the-wool supporter of Obama. He was an addict, not to say a fan of Obama. He was an acolyte. He's a psychiatrist, and his expertise is diagnosing state leaders. That's his expertise. He was a CIA profiler of state leaders. And he came out with an article in New York Times Magazine, saying clearly that he thinks Obama is mentally deranged. What more do you want? It's now a consensus that Obama suffers from some serious mental health problems, be it narcissism, be it something else, doesn't matter. What has anyone done to counter that? What? Congress, someone, the media, popular movement, grassroots. No one has done anything. And I don't sleep well at night. I know narcissism intimately. Possibly I know narcissism more than anyone else in the world. And that's definitely my expertise. And I'm telling you that the man is on the verge of decompensating and acting out. Brand, shall we... Do you have any... Because I think 1 hour for most people would be...
Yes, this is
difficult to endure. Unless you have something, very specific to ask. Or
you've given us a lot to think about, and I think we need to let people immediately begin thinking about this.
My pleasure to continue another 3 hours with you, but I'm thinking of our listeners, and I don't think they can stand much more than an hour and a half. It's very difficult on the internet, at least.
Yes, we have to check what Obama's been doing while we've been.
What's the damage du jour? And we can always do this again, So as things develop and so on, I'm at your disposal, and I'll be more than delighted.
Thank you, Sam Vaknin. And
thank you for having me. And let's be in touch, and let's do it again as things develop.
Okay, we will.
Take care, everyone there.
Goodbye.